The author of What Your Stockbroker Doesn't Want You to Know is joining us right now, Bruce Sankin. Bruce, nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, Derek. Ken, thank you.
Bruce, a lot of people just say, my broker says, here's a bunch of stuff, and investment objectives and your address, and I don't know, there's an income thing here. This is important stuff.
It is.
A lot of people take about a minute. The broker says, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'll fill it out for you.
I'll get it later.
Well, I'll tell you something. The account form is probably the only written document that describes the investor. Most investments are done verbally over the phone. Your stockbroker calls you. He says, look, I have something for you. He gives you information.
So you do it or you don't. Sure.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And in case there's a problem somewhere down the road, it usually happens 6 months, a year later. And your conversation of what happened with the stockbroker, and it's going to be different than what you feel actually occurred. Yeah. And the account form is the only written document that describes your profile.
Well said.
All right, but let's go through some of the things that people fill out when they open that new account at a brokerage firm. Okay. And you tell me how something can be harmful if it's so innocuous. For example, all right, my name and address, and then maybe rent or own.
Okay.
How can I get in trouble with that?
Well, it's funny. That's a basic question. That's usually about the third question down. They ask you, do you rent or own a home? Now, it doesn't sound like much, but a home is the largest investment that an individual usually makes. And please understand something. In case there's a problem down the road, the brokerage firm's attorney, in case, unfortunately, you must go to arbitration, is going to find a way that makes you look knowledgeable, that you knew what you were doing. Now, what's important when we're talking about a home, we know it's a major investment. And what a attorney for the brokerage firm might say, if you bought a real estate limited partnership, and let's say it hasn't done well at all.
Which is not a bad example, Bruce.
Unfortunately, it's not a bad example at all.
All right.
All right? He might say to you, do you own a home? And you would say yes. And then he says, well, let me ask you a question. Since you own real estate, aren't you aware of the risks involved in real estate? The person might say, well, what are you talking about? Well, how about liquidity risk? You know that you can't sell it tomorrow if you wanted to sell it. You know it could take months, even longer, possibly. Well, also the economic risks. What happens if the economy goes down?
So we're tying in the investment with something that I've already invested in.
Exactly.
Before, for the sake of example, the limited partnership.
Exactly.
Tell me some statistics. Arbitration. How many, give me 100 people or 200 people.
Okay.
What happens when 200 complaints against firms?
Okay, well, 200 people who just file for arbitration. I'll tell you, first of all, there was an article written by the director of arbitration from the NASD, and she said that 100 people who file for arbitration, the cases are settled. So 50% of all cases are settled before the arbitrators before the arbitrators make a decision.
So the firm will come back and say, here, let's not go through this, we'll pay you X.
True, but you have to go ahead.
And file.
And absolutely.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Once you file, the brokerage firm must respond. They can't ignore your telephone calls. They can't ignore your letters anymore.
Once you file.
Once you file, okay? And also, of all the cases, the remaining cases, as I said, let's take 200 cases. We know 100 are settled prior to the arbitrators making a decision. Of the remaining 100, over 53%, the arbitrators make a decision in favor of the client, so they get some or all of their money back.
So don't be put off and don't be scared of going through the arbitration process, whether it stops at the end with a settlement, it goes right through the hearing. Know your rights and stick up for your rights.
Absolutely. In fact, it's 3 out of 4 people who file for arbitration will probably get some or all of that money back.
I'm going to have you leave our audience with one last thought. On the brokerage firm, or the broker just asks in passing, how did you hear about this firm?
That's an excellent question. Most people, when they say, how did you come to us, was either through a walk-in or through an advertisement or a seminar. This is information that, unfortunately, if there's a problem, they can use against you. Example, if you've learned about the brokerage firm through a seminar, this shows that you go out of your way to get information on investments. And if you've done it once, there's a very good chance you've done it more than once.
I never thought of that angle.
That's why I wanted to leave the audience.
I've been in this business 20 years and I never thought of that. Bruce, thank you. We'll see you again.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's good information and a good book, too.
Nice having you with us. Our guest has been Bruce Sankin. He is author of What Your Stockbroker Doesn't Want You to Know.